What's up? Thanks for coming on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I know I see you repping the Phoenix Suns hat right now. So
I got my custom Phoenix Suns hat. As a friend made this for me. It's like painted it on.
oh, that's awesome. Very nice. But yeah, we've been trying to kind of get in touch for coming on for a little bit now. I'm glad we finally got to be able
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
that
Glad we going.
for sure. I guess to kick it off, the first thing I like to ask people is just starting with music. What have you been listening to lately?
Yeah, good question. I feel like I've been listening to a lot of 70s stuff. And this has been for the last like year or so. I've been like
Right.
really into like Jackson Brown and like Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Nice.
Like that Laurel Canyon stuff I've been like really into, and then also God, what else? That's the hardest question, you know.
I know.
A lot
Yeah.
of that stuff, uh, even like 70s like Bob Dylan stuff. I've never really been that into Bob Dylan, but I'm kind of getting into his like later stuff, like the band and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Very nice. So yeah, you mentioned the kind of 1970 stuff you've been into. I feel like I did hear a lot of that in the album you put out this year. Do you feel like that came through a lot?
yeah, I think the drum sounds we were really referencing the 70s a lot
Mhm.
with like the dry, tight drum sound, like really punchy drums. So we made a really conscious effort to really and those are like my favorite kind of drums anyway, and we were really just trying to do that. And then a lot of the production choices were really coming more from the 90s,
Mhm.
and less so like sounds, but more so choices,
Mhm.
because I feel like the 90s were such an interesting time in music because almost no two songs sound alike. Like we all think of like the 90s sound a certain way, but it really it's so drastic from one band to another. And there was a lot of bands that just had like one song, you know, from the 90s. Obviously there were like, you know, Nirvana and people like that who had like careers in the 90s, but there was
Mhm.
a lot of just like, oh, this one song from the 90s or this one song. And all these bands, it's like novelty songs in a way. Like every song is like some weird little song. Um and we were really, you know, referencing like Sublime and like
Yeah.
Nirvana and like Weezer and you know, like weird, but then also like, you know, uh, I can't think of like all the references right now,
Yeah.
but a lot of the 90s and the freedom of their like choices, because I feel like now, you know, there's great music coming out now, but it sounds like the radio sounds like one thing, you know, like there
Mhm.
is like a sound to right now, or there's a sound 10 years ago and 20 years ago before that. Like it is, there is a sound, whereas like the 90s really were super experimental. Like people were taking a lot of chances and like just doing like weird meant successful at that time. And like it meant like commercial success as well,
Yeah.
which is something I wish we could all get back to, and I'm trying to push for, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I feel like honestly, I've had this conversation a few times recently, but it's like music today, it's you know, the definition of success is so varied. And what is on the radio isn't necessarily success for everyone. It really is such a
True.
spectrum
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. I mean, there's times where I'm like driving by like a big, like, you know, venue here or something, and I see a band's name on the marquee, and there's like tons of people lined up
Yeah.
outside the thing. I'm like, what is this band? Like, I've never even
Yeah.
heard of this. And like, it's like they're sold out some big venue, and it's, you
Hmm.
know, there's just all kinds of little avenues for success, and people have their little like cult things. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm in this business, and I still don't understand how it works fully.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe it for sure. Um, so I guess more on the album you just put out, do you have kind of what was the process in getting that recorded? I mean, it had been maybe what this is your first, I guess, post pandemic album, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, post pandemic album. I started writing it at the start of the pandemic,
Mhm.
uh, in I think February, kind of wrote most of it in like February through like April or May, um, in 2020,
Hmm.
and was just kind of recording it at home, and just was just writing really, and just wrote a bunch of songs, made a bunch of songs, and then kind of tinkered with it for a while, and kind of just put it on hold for a little bit. I've
Hmm.
been really more focused on like producing and like writing with other people. Like that's more where my head's at these days, is like being a producer and not so much focused on my like artist project.
Yeah.
And I played these songs for my friend Dave, who was our drummer for a long time and has like worked on stuff with me before in the past. I was like, oh yeah, I've got all these songs. I don't know what to do with these. They're just kind of like, there's, collecting cobwebs on a hard drive somewhere. Um, and he's like, these are great. Like, we should work on these, or at least finish this like one. There was like one he really liked a lot, and he's like,
Hmm.
let's just like record some drums at my place, and see what we can do with this song. And then that led to like, oh yeah, but we should record drums for this other song. And then that kind of spiraled into us like spending, God, maybe like 3 or 4 months just like tracking stuff, like almost
Hmm.
like redoing the entire thing, which like to me, I was like, oh, I made like an album. And it kind of sounded a little shitty because it was very like, it was recorded very quickly and not with a lot of like thought behind it. And um yeah, we just sort of, one thing led to another, and by the end of it, we were like, oh, we just like re-recorded this entire thing and made this
Hmm.
album together. So it was really made with my friend and collaborator Dave Weingarten, who's great dude. And but yeah, he
Awesome.
was kind of pushed me to finish it.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I get, are you still actually in Arizona area?
No, I live in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I grew up in Arizona. And lived there till I was like 20, 21,
Hmm.
22, and then moved around a bit. I was here for a bit, and I was in New York for a little while as well. But yeah, I've been here for the last like 8 years or something.
Got it. Cool. Cool. Um, and I guess since so I saw you play in Chicago. I'm in Chicago. I saw you play
Oh,
probably 10 years ago. I think were you touring with the Get Up Kids?
yes, we
That
were.
I
Yeah,
saw that tour. It was a very good show. I remember it vividly.
cool. Okay,
Um,
cool. Yeah, that was a funny tour. I feel like they're really cool dudes.
mhm.
That was a funny tour for us because I feel like, and I totally get it. At the time, I was like a lot younger, and I was like, "Oh, like why don't they like us?" But I feel like the audience was there to see the Get Up Kids. Like primarily, we're not a big band even now, really. So it's like
Mhm.
we were the opening band for a band that people really love and were excited to see. And so a lot of the shows were like people literally like folding their arms or like turning their backs while we were playing. We're like, oh
Turning the
man, the audience.
backs. That seems like a little
There, I
extra.
look, I saw some people like give a look of disgust and fold their arms and turn their backs.
Man,
Not
that's
everybody. I'm
wild.
sure there were some people that enjoyed it, but that was a hard one because we were really like young and impressionable as far as
Sure.
the way the world works at that point.
Yeah. I mean, you tell it to the volcano. That's very it's indie pop and Get Up Kids are obviously like a legacy emo band, so it's not exactly the same audience. So it
Right.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I get it because if I went to go see a band like a legacy band that was reuniting and then there was some band opening up for them that I never heard of, I'd probably, I don't know if I'd fold my arms and give a look of disgust, but I don't
Right.
think I'd care at all, if I'm being honest.
Well, I enjoyed both sets. It was great.
Well, see, I'm happy. You're the target demographic for that.
Perfect. Um, I guess since that album, like Tell It to the Volcano, I feel like that's kind of the one that kind of got you out there a little bit. How do you feel you've changed your sound and music writing since then?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that was the first record. Um, and those songs were pulled together from like, how like the 4 years previous of it, me learning how to write music and like
Mhm.
writing my first songs and just basically writing all the time, and then had tons of songs and picked the best ones to make that album. Um, and it was really coming from a place of not overthinking anything. I mean, I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just writing some songs in my
Right.
room, and oh, let's make this album and la la la, like really without any kind of like intention behind it, you know.
Mhm.
Um and then you know, I've always really loved artists like Beck or the Beatles, where it's like they each album is like some new sound or new experience, you know, like so we didn't it never even occurred to me to try to like repeat the sound of that album. And I
Mhm.
think with our second album we tried to go for something a little like, ooh, like a little darker, or like, you know, kind of went a little less like sunny, you know.
Right.
And then our third record, I was like really like fascinated by like pop writers and stuff like Max Martin, and like, wow, how do you like construct like a perfect pop song? Um and I was like, oh, it'd be really fun to like make something super pop and like synthy, and like really shock the audience who's like just heard this really like almost organic kind of, you know, 2010 folky indie
Mhm.
record or something,
Mhm.
you know, to then have like a crazy Max Martin sounding song, which I thought was like at the time subversive, you know. Um, I guess I don't know, like how have I changed? It's I feel like I'm always trying to do something different or make something. I don't feel like I know how to repeat myself, you know,
Yeah.
like if someone's like "Make an album like Tell It to the Volcano," I wouldn't even understand. I wouldn't have the self understanding enough to be able to do that, I think. Um, but I feel like spiritually, I'm almost back in that place where it's like, oh yeah, I'm making music because I love to make music, and there's nothing that contrived about the process. Whereas
Mhm.
like then, and not even like it's a negative thing, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna like try to like take a left turn and like do this, and it was like there was other factors in play that weren't just like, oh, I'm making what feels right to me at this time, and it did at the time. Obviously, I don't think I made any decisions based off anything,
Yeah.
you know, impure or anything.
Sure.
But yeah, I think, yeah, I feel like I'm closer to that place spiritually than I have been in the last like while.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, you mentioned like back in the Beatles. I do feel like that sense does come through because all of your albums are they're still very much they sound like you, but they all have different, it's almost like you have your own different eras within. And it's like from what I hear from your most recent album to Tell It's a Volcano, like I can tell it's the same band. It's just you have like kind of it's you're going through different eras in each one. So it's really interesting to hear that.
Yeah, totally. And I think this last album is like it's almost like a best of, you know, like it really does have like kind of a lot of it's it, I feel like it's its own thing, and it does something that the others didn't, but it also like recalls back to some of those moments. Like there's a
Sure.
couple songs that I feel like volcano-ish and like the style of writing, and then there's like some moodier stuff, there's
Yeah,
synth
yeah.
stuff.
I feel
Really
like
is kind of like
Bloomless definitely does feel like that a little bit.
totally, yeah,
Yeah, it's awesome. And so I guess segueing a little bit into the basketball
sure.
aspect. Part of the reason, I mean, even going back to that concert I went to, part of the reason I suspected you might be into basketball is there's a that one photo of you in the Chicago Bulls sweatshirt that I feel like it was your Spotify artist profile for like the longest time.
I think it might still be, in fact.
Yeah. So I mean, on that note, you did mention I feel like the '90s NBA aesthetic is like kind of your jam.
Yeah, I feel like that was this is a hot take. I think basketball peaked in the 90s.
I don't think that's as hot of a take as you think.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
good. I mean, I know there's like LeBron and all these guys, like I'm sure they're great. I stopped watching basketball in like 1995 or something like that.
You stopped watching before Jordan even retired.
Yeah, he was probably still playing. And then like
Damn.
I remember me no, yeah, because I think like then he played baseball for a bit.
Yeah. That
I
was
remember
your
wait, what did he
timeline
do?
tracks
Oh,
because
yeah.
I believe that was 95 when he played
When
baseball.
was he playing It was 95. Okay, yeah. That's when things got screwy, you know. He was like, I'm gonna go play baseball. What are
And
you
then he
doing?
came back and he won three
And
more.
it came, yeah. I think that's
Crazy.
kind of cool, actually. I mean, I don't know. I think that's cool.
Yeah. So that's the last time you watched basketball?
I've seen like a game or two here and there, but the thing is like if you don't know who these people are, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to be like emotionally caught up in it. Um, I'm not the biggest sports guy in general. Like,
Sure.
I watched like a year of NFL with my dad because he loved to like bet on football games. And then we just like got into it for a year. I was like, all right, I'll like bet with you on some football. And like we watched football for a year and he was like explaining to me all these like players and like, oh, this guy's got beef with this guy and like this team and that thing. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then by the end of the season, I was like, oh yeah, look, like McManus and this guy are doing their thing, you know, like I don't McManus isn't a real player,
Yeah. Sounds like an
but he
NFL
might
player.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
not he's actually a guy on this show called Oz that I'm watching. He's like the warden.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, but you know, it's like you kind of got to care about the players to be caught up in it, I think. And I don't know, as a kid, it was just like so accessible or something. Like it was
Hmm.
just these iconic players, you know, on all these. It wasn't just the Suns, it was like all of them.
Yeah.
And I think the logos, especially, that was like kind of a gateway drug into it. Just the
Hmm.
logos were so cool, like the merch, you know, like all the jerseys and
Totally.
like the logos have gotten progressively worse too.
I actually do agree with that.
I and I'm
I'm a
not
graphic
saying
designer,
basketball,
so
right? You can agree. Like
yeah.
I don't even know what the Suns logo looks like now, but the last time I saw it, I probably gasped and said like,
So
what happened?
they just dropped new uniforms for this season, which are heavily inspired by your favorite '90s ones.
Really?
So
I
they're
gotta
bringing it
see it.
back, but modernize. They're trying to modernize it a little bit, but it's still got that big sun stripe, which is pretty
Hold
cool.
on, I'm looking this up right now.
Yeah, yeah. I
Suns. What do I logo
Suns, yeah,
2023 or
Suns
something?
jerseys 2023. I think the '90s ones are still better, but they're at least they're inching back that direction.
Ugh, no. I mean, like, okay, I see it. It looks like the basketball's going into the pit, the armpit
Right.
on the jersey, but it's like cutting off the basketball. So like already that's like kind of a problem for me. And it just says Suns. It's like that's cool. Oh no, this is bad. Still.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I see this one. The color's right. They got the color kind of right.
The strong purple and orange, yeah.
Yeah, I see that. That's that's cool, I guess, you know.
I
It's
totally
it looks
agree. In
like sportwear or
between,
something. It just looks
yeah.
like it's
It's the
gyms,
material
like
too, I think, honestly. But like um
yeah.
I feel like the in-between jerseys, like when the Suns were good in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, those jerseys were hideous. Those were like
Yeah, let me look up that because that was
Steve
like
Nash
godless.
era. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like gray and purple, which is kind of weird.
Right. Oh yeah, this thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Those were terrible.
it looks like someone that gives you parking tickets would wear this or like some corporate government job.
Yeah, it's rough, especially
Yeah.
they had some alts that were like gray and orange and like those colors just like hurt my eyes to look at.
Oh man. Yeah, honestly, this just the original Suns thing. Well, I'm
Yeah.
even seeing the black jersey. What was that for exactly? Because they
I
didn't
don't
wear that
remember,
off.
but for some reason those jerseys I immediately think of Jason Kidd with bleach blonde hair.
Right. Yeah, totally. All three of their
um
jerseys, iconic.
yes, absolutely. And I totally agree with you on the '90s, like, aesthetic of jerseys and stuff. Prime era of like merchandise and just like there's a reason Mitchell and Ness is so successful because they have all those throwbacks.
Right. You know, the dream team, the Olympic dream team, that
Hmm.
was maybe like the last kind of basketball thing I like peak in my mind because I was like wow, all the legends are here. I knew these guys, and it was that
Totally.
that felt like peak to me.
Yeah, I mean, and then even from I still think about the jerseys too. Like you did send me like the sheet of like all the logos from that era. I'm like, just it's perfect. I remember having one of those puffer starter jackets. Uh, I think I had a Hornets one.
Yeah. What other jerseys did you have in the 90s?
So I didn't
Were
have a
you like
lot.
I mean,
I
were you from Chicago at that like you
Yeah,
were
I'm
in
I'm from the
Chicago?
burbs of Chicago. Yeah.
Wow.
Um, so I had a
Like
lot of
you
bull
probably didn't
stuff.
rock some other shit. It's like if you have the Bulls, it's like, you know what I mean? Like what are you gonna do?
You're
We're
kind
like
of
a
growing up with Michael Jordan. It's like that's your thing.
yeah,
But
right.
I my older brothers, they were very into like other teams as well, because I one of my brothers was a huge Olajuwon fan, so he had a Houston Rockets jersey that was, again, probably their best jersey. I hate the Rockets jerseys now, but those ones in the 90s where it was like the yellow text with the red jersey, love those.
Oh yeah, that was good.
And then also, yeah, I think we have some Hornet stuff just because it's impossible not to like that team. That's like Larry Johnson,
Right,
Alonzo
yeah, I did.
Mourning.
Yeah, Alonzo. I had an Alonzo Mourning jersey. I love that's like that was my favorite. I think logo,
Mhm,
like the turquoise, especially in the '90s, just hit
totally.
so hard. Uh,
I
it's
feel like
fucking
now I'm connecting that your departure from watching basketball is pretty much when Space Jam came out.
right. Like I'm not even sure I saw Space Jam
Yeah, yeah.
at 10 or
That's
something. I
fine.
think
It's not like it's a cinematic masterpiece,
I
but
think it also has to do with like turning. Uh, God, how old must I have been? And I was probably like just starting to get into like Limp Bizkit and stuff, and like
ooh,
skating or like
yeah.
I didn't skate, but like I might as well
Skate
have with how I
culture.
was dressed. Skate culture, yeah, skate culture, Limp Bizkit, and I was like kind of getting more into like you know smoking a cigarette at like a lunch break with the bad
Hmm.
kids or something, and I didn't really like fit in with like basketball. Also, I realized I wasn't good at sports, so that felt kind of alienated as
I was
well.
gonna ask, did you play basketball or anything growing up?
I mean, we had a basketball hoop at my house, so I'd like play. Yeah, I'd like play a little bit. I never like played. I never went like pro, like at the school or anything.
Right.
But no, yeah, I wasn't that good. I mean, I love shooting hoops now. Like I couldn't tell you last time I played like a game, but like
Right.
sometimes I'll go to someone's house and they have like a hoop, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's play horse or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a good time passer for sure. Um, yeah, so I guess you traded your basketball shorts for Jinkos at a certain time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
um, I guess looking back though at the kind of the era when you were most, I guess, interested in watching, what do you have any memories of like those Suns teams or I guess the NBA in general?
Yeah, I mean, I remember the what year was the God? Am I the worst guy you've had on this podcast? By the way, with the like, I have to ask you, when did the Bulls and the
No.
Suns have playoffs thing? That was
And I might not, honestly, I
94,
might not even
93.
be the best to answer that because like that
Okay,
was still
okay,
probably like early in my time.
right.
I remember like the second half of the Jordan years. Um, but I think yes, it had to be probably 92 or 93 because I think
Okay,
91
yeah.
the Blazers won the championship.
Yeah, I remember that game or like those games
Hmm.
and feeling like, wow, like, knowing Jordan was like the GOAT.
Of course.
Um, and then also having this kind of yeah, it's like growing up in Arizona, it's not the coolest place to grow up. I mean, I liked it and I'm proud to be from there now, obviously, but
Mhm.
as a kid, it's not the coolest place, It's like kind of like a weird place to grow up and um seeing like, oh, my team is playing like the greatest team, like the
Right.
greatest. So like we're also the greatest team and like having that kind of prideful feeling as a kid, which is so weird. Like, why was I having these feelings? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get it.
But having these feelings about that, and then yeah, and then losing to. to them. You know, it was like, oh, it shows you your place in the world a little bit. I was like, right, we're Arizona. We're not like the best, you know, like
Hmm.
someone else out there is the best. And I feel like that feeling, this is going to turn into like a therapy session, maybe a little bit. I feel like it stuck with me a little bit. You know what I mean? Like that stuck with me throughout my life of like, oh yeah, like there's something better out there, like that's not here. Like you can't be the best here or something, you know, like
Hmm.
I feel like that feeling maybe like affected me in some
Shit. I mean, sports
psychological
have
kind of way.
a very real effect, you know? It happens.
Right. Yeah.
I
This is
feel
why I see
like
people like crying during basketball games. It's not about the game. It's about some other
right.
deep stuff going
Absolutely.
on.
I feel like too in Arizona around that time, I mean, there wasn't much sports wise, there wasn't much else going on. You didn't have the Diamondbacks yet. Um and
Or the Coyotes. Yeah,
yeah,
you
or
know,
the
Arizona, I
Coyotes.
gotta say, like they come out with a team and they're pretty awesome. Like they have good sports. I don't know like
Diamondbacks
how the
won within like
Coyotes
their
or any
first
of these.
5 years.
Yeah, they're like came out of the gate like really strong, I think.
Yeah,
Because they had
definitely.
what's his name? Randy Johnson, the mullet
Randy
guy.
Johnson, the Luis Gonzalez was a good team.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
um so did you, I guess in your prime era, did you have a favorite player on the Suns?
Yeah, I love Charles Barkley always.
Yes.
Um, and I mean, yeah, so like my era, it was Charles Barkley, Dan Marley, and KJ. It was kind of
Hmm.
like, you know, like he wasn't the star player, but he was like the Ringo of
Yeah.
the Suns, you know?
I
He's
love that
like
connection.
does makes it work, you know, and like does a lot. I love Ringo. I don't This is no shade against Ringo.
Totally.
I actually think he's the GOAT,
I wonder if
but yeah,
you're gonna
KJ.
pocket that one for later on if we do this little matchup game.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Yeah, like
um
which right, yeah, I've got a thought about that.
let's
Save it for
let
later.
let's move into it. I mean, let's do it. So we like to play a little game called musician matchups where you kind of pair a player with what you think who would they be as a musician, you know, compare
Right.
them. um so we have a bunch of players. We kept it, you know, 90s centric for you, outside of the first one who is more 2000s, but Steve Nash.
So who was that guy?
You don't know Steve Nash?
No, I
Okay.
know Steve Nash, but you listed another guy when you messaged me about
Oh,
this originally.
Devin Booker, who is the, I would say, arguably the face of the
Evan.
Suns today.
Really? Okay.
He
See,
is
I should know that.
a very talented 3-point shooter. This, you know, the Suns are quite a good team right now. If you got back into it,
Yeah, I know. Like I have friends that like I see them, they're like, the Suns are coming back, and like and then like I kind of just see it like out of the corner of my eye. I'm so
yeah,
disloyal, you know. It's like, I feel like if they were really doing good, I'd be like, all right, I'll hop back in, you know.
right,
But I see friends that are like, man, the Suns are the best, and then like they're like, fuck the Suns, they blew it, and like I'm like, what's going on?
right. Plus, you're in
But
Lakers
this
town
guy
now.
Devin, he's great.
Yes, Devin Booker, great. He's a solid 3-point shooter, and he's on the team with Kevin Durant, who's like a generationally good player.
Dope.
Um, but we'll start with Steve Nash, and
Hollywood Steve.
yeah, who do you got?
Well, Steve Nash is a funny guy anyway because he was way after my time, but I know of Steve Nash from friends who were like Suns fans that would
Yeah.
be talking about Steve Nash and how like, oh, he's like the best, the
Hmm.
greatest. The Suns are great again because of Steve Nash. And then when he went to the Lakers, I heard nothing but like horrible, horrible things about Steve Nash. Like he's a traitor and like he's committed crimes against us because he left the Suns. So I have weird feelings about Steve Nash because it's like, you know, like the people that around me that I got my information from loved him, and then they now they're like, yeah, Steve Nash, he's a bad guy.
Just by proxy,
Um,
you're like you hurt my friends.
yeah, they would hurt my friends. You like dump my friend in LA, you know, shacked up with well, Shaq, quite
Yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Hollywood Steve. Yeah, Steve Nash, like what band would he be?
Yeah.
He kind of, well, visually, he looks like he could be in the Killers
I mean,
or something. You know,
absolutely.
he has
Yeah.
that kind of like early aughts, like indie kind of look.
The flowy hair
Um,
for sure.
right. But as far as like his, you know, quest to just be on like, I mean, again, I don't know Steve Nash. I'm only basing this off of what my like
That's honestly, I
same
feel like
friends have
that's
told me about him.
the better like answers come from that of just
Yeah.
like
Well,
absolutely baseless generalities.
he seems ruthless. Like he wants power, he wants success, you know? Like who's like that, you know? Maybe like Taylor Swift,
Oh,
to be
okay.
honest.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
someone that's like ambitious to the point of like, you know, there's no shit against Taylor Swift, but you know,
Sure.
she's very ambitious.
Yes.
I feel like yeah, maybe Taylor Swift. I don't
All
know.
right. I buy it. Um, so my pick for that, I went with so Steve Nash is notably Canadian. So I went with a Canadian
Oh,
musician.
that I didn't know. Okay, well,
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
that's jeez.
He actually Steve Nash was like he's really good at soccer too, but that has nothing to do with my answer. I picked
Got the
the
body for it.
yeah, yeah. I picked
He's
John K.
little.
Sampson from the Weaker Thans. Uh
Uh, okay, yeah, I could see that.
he's
But the thing is like, also Steve Nash is kind of no offense to Steve Nash, but kind of a like a douche apparently. Like he's kind of like
I feel
he
differently.
might be a great guy, but like he kind of dresses like I've seen photos of him out and he's wearing like you know like the Von Dutch like tap outs. Like he's kind of like a bro, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like honestly he dresses like he plays soccer more than anything. Like he wears like a zip up like all the way up to the neck, you know?
Oh, that's cool.
Like
Maybe Oasis or something.
yeah,
That's
almost like Arctic
some
Monkeys.
soccer
Like
hooligan
yeah.
stuff.
Maybe,
Arctic Monkeys.
maybe that's right.
That that feels right for me.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome.
Oh, great.
Uh but next on the list is someone you're more familiar with. It's Dan Marley.
Yeah, Marley. Yeah. Weird guy because like familiar with, yet like who is he? You know, he's kind of mysterious. Like Charles Barkley, like I mean, we'll get to him, but like Dan Marley, I don't like in my head, like I can't imagine what Dan Marley's voice sounds like. He's just kind of like he's kind of stoic or like calm seeming
Mm-hmm.
in a way to me in my memories. Um, he could almost be like a hmm, like Neil Young or something, or like I'm trying to think
Ooh.
of like an indie
You're
example.
still
Like
stuck on Canada, man.
right, he's not Canadian. Where's Dan Marley from? Do you know?
I have no idea. He seems to be honestly loving like Arizona lifestyle in retirement. Like I remember there was one video clip of him at a Diamondbacks game where he like caught a ground rule double like while he had like a hot dog in his other hand. He's just like living it up.
That's sick. He's like a family guy, probably. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
probably. You know, he play a round of golf or something.
Right. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Maybe. Who's yours? Let me hear yours. I said Neil Young. I might stand behind that. I don't know.
You know, I can buy that too. So he had the nickname of Thunder Dan.
Right.
Uh, so I went off that and the fact that he's genuinely just I think he's just like he was a fun player. Like I feel like he was just like he was not like the like ultimate best on the team, but he helped others on the team and he was just like a fun dude. So I said Thundercat
Thundercat.
because
Thundercat.
Thundercat plays
Thundercat.
bass on a ton of
Yeah.
other people's tracks, but
He's a
also
great utility player. Yeah.
he is and he's just fun. You know, the music he
Yeah.
makes is just so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Okay. I vibe with that. I feel like that's the best answer.
Cool. So third on the list, another from that era is KJ, Kevin Johnson.
Right. KJ, I mean, after this, I want to assign Beatles to these guys too. But
There you go.
the KJ we've established is the Ringo.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, I thought Marley was the Ringo.
no,
Okay, okay,
well,
okay.
you know,
All right.
hmm.
I feel like KJ's
No,
got a little
I
more
I
flair than
don't.
that.
I think Marley's the Paul, quite frankly,
Wow.
because I think he's kind of level-headed and like secretly was like keeping the team together. You
Yeah.
know, like kind of like doing what he had to do to like make sure that ship ran smoothly, and also
Okay.
like was a great player, and kind of has like Paul vibes anyway. I'll just do it real quick because I already know
Yeah, let's
Paul.
go for it.
Dan Marley is Paul. KJ is Ringo. Steve Nash is clearly George. I mean, like they even like look alike, kind of
I
like they're
mean, you
like
already had ill
thing.
will towards, the feelings towards him. Like George just wanted out, so it's like,
No, I love George. I'm a big George guy.
me
I'm
too.
just
I'm
saying, like their body type is like the same. You know what I mean?
okay,
Uh, they have like the same like haircut and shit.
right?
And then like clearly Charles Barkley is John Lennon. Like
Yeah.
he's like kind of like runs his mouth off and is like really quotable and like kind of a bit of a like loose cannon and like
Hmm.
has the like that charm to it.
He like Charles would make you believe that he was like on your side, but then he's like, I'm gonna go.
He's like, I'm Charles Barkley. I'm going off. Yeah, okay. If you don't like it, then yeah.
Perfect.
Um, yeah, I was gonna
Outside of the Beatles,
outside of the Beatles, who are
KJ.
KJ, right? So KJ is interesting. KJ is like
I mean,
underrated,
yes,
maybe.
definitely underrated. I feel like wasn't fully appreciated in the present, but I feel like honestly, he, later on, people really appreciated what he brought to the game.
You know what? Maybe KJ is the Ringo. Wait, I said that already. No,
You
KJ
did
is
say
the
that.
Ringo.
Yeah, that's what
No.
you said.
Oh, but maybe KJ is the George, is what I meant. Is because like
I feel that one.
With Beatles, it's like George Harrison, incredible songwriter, like one of the
Underappreciated.
best, underappreciated, but like also like considered one of the greatest songwriters of all time. He's written amazing
Yeah.
albums, and like his contributions to his solo work and the Beatles, everything. He's a legend. But it's like when you're the third best writer in a band and you're George Harrison, it's like that sucks. I'm not
No.
sure like was KJ like a goat? I don't know. I don't know enough about
Mm,
KJ to say.
no,
Like was
solid
he?
point guard of the era.
Yeah, solid, but not like almost kind of got branded into it.
Yeah, I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
It's the Hall of Very Good. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hall of very good.
Yeah.
KJ, could be like kind of like the miniature tigers or like
Ooh.
I'll go like narcissistic with this one. He's
Is
kind of
it
like
narcissistic though?
he
I
was
feel
like
like
good. He
you're
was
pulling
like kind
yourself
of
down.
like of a time and
Yeah.
like wasn't like the best ever, but like was pretty good.
I don't feel like that's narcissistic. I feel like that's
No, I
actually
think
kind of self-deprecating.
that's yeah, that's self. I gotta get into that with the therapist. Like, yeah, I went on this podcast and I like really shit all over myself. Um, yeah,
Okay.
KJ. I mean, no, KJ. Who do you think KJ is?
So, I mean, in the same sense, not fully appreciated in his era. I feel like had kind of a cult following afterwards.
Right.
People went back to him. I do think he influenced a future generation of players. He was a point guard who liked to like play physically and like he would dunk it. And I feel like it wasn't very common for point guards to do it back then. Uh, I feel like he's like neutral milk hotel a little bit.
Whoa. Okay.
Like when that album came out, like people didn't know what to do with it. And they're like, this is good, but like now, like people like it is
Yeah,
such
I feel
cult
like when
following.
most people got to that album, it had already like there were a lot of people that like, oh, you're just discovering this.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
had
people
already.
gatekeep it now, like the
I
originality.
feel like most people relate to it and don't want to admit it, but
Yeah,
that's who
absolutely.
else KJ could be is like thinking about someone that's like good but surrounded by great is like like he could be a bunch of different bands from like the early indie scene of
Hmm.
like you had the Strokes, right? And then you had like or no, you had sure the Strokes, but you had the Killers.
Yeah.
But then you had the Bravery, you know?
Yep.
It's like these or you had the Strokes, but then you had like
The
the
Hives.
Hives or like the Vines for
Yeah.
some maybe
The
the
blank.
Vines because the Vines were sick
Yeah.
and also very physical. Like if you've seen their like David Letterman performance, it's like
Hmm.
shocking. It's like they're kind of hard, but underrated.
Totally.
Maybe they're the KJ's the Vines. That's my final answer for me
I love that.
personally.
Okay. I love that. All right. Our last one, I know, aside from obviously being a John Lennon, who is Charles Barkley?
Who is Charles Barkley? Well, he's my favorite basketball player. I
There we
love
go.
Charles
Correct
Barkley.
answer.
I think I like him more than Jordan, even. I mean, obviously Jordan is incredible, but like I almost don't relate to that level of greatness. And I feel like
Hmm.
Jordan's not like super humble as a guy. Like, and neither is Charles Barkley, but I
No,
like
yeah.
someone that's like, I mean, Charles Barkley, God, he's so sick. And I saw him, I was in a hot tub with Charles Barkley. I'm just gonna say the story because I don't know when else I'll get to tell it. Is that I went to this gym with my dad in Arizona, and we'd go like swimming and like sit in the hot tub down there. He'd like take me, and then Charles Barkley also belonged to this gym. And then one day I was sitting in the hot tub, and Charles Barkley got in, and just sat in there and like read, like kind of got halfway in and was like reading the paper in the hot tub, and I was like, wow, I'm in a hot tub with Charles Barkley. This is, goals.
That's a story for a
It's
lifetime.
not that great of a story because nothing else happened other than I was in a hot tub with him, but
What era Charles was
Robert,
this? Was he like on
I
the team
think he,
still?
no, I think he'd probably been off the team at this point. This must have been like 98. Maybe he was
Okay.
still on. I don't know. When did he leave the
He
Suns?
might have been on the Rockets at that point.
Yeah. When did he retire from basketball?
It was around then. I feel like he probably retired like 99 or 2000 or
I
something like
gotta
that.
look this up. Charles Barkley retired. Let's see. He 2000. Yeah, it was probably after 2000. So he might
Okay.
have been even doing like sports commentary or
Yeah.
something at
I
this
mean,
point.
a second life for him. Like he has really flourished as a sports commentator.
And it makes sense. I love him as a
Yeah,
sports commentator. He's so like speaks his mind.
absolutely.
He's kind of like Noel Gallagher a bit. Like he or
Ooh,
like Kanye. Like he's kind of, and both of these people are whatever your feelings about either of them are like super goated as far as their like artistic output,
sure.
and but also like really have a lot to say and are very quotable and
Absolutely.
fun because they're like saying crazy shit, and it's like I like that aspect of like artists and music. I love Noel Gallagher. I love to see what kind of shit he's gonna say next.
Totally. He just eggs on his brother like every day of his life.
Right, yeah.
I
But
That's
Charles
actually the
Barkley, yeah.
perfect reasoning. I love that. That's solid. Um well yeah, that's what we got for the game. And honestly, I think that's really all I got, but thank you for joining me, man. It's been
Thanks for
fun
having me.
talking basketball.
Yeah, it was a total pleasure.
I hope maybe I kind of got you a little curious about what the NBA holds
You know what? Yeah, after talking about all this basketball, I'm like, yeah, basketball. Maybe we should be
today.
watching more basketball. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I gotta get like some basketball friends to watch with because I think sports in general, like it's fun to watch with other people.
Absolutely.
Like I've never, even when I was into sports, I'd watch with like my brother or my dad or something, and like or friend. I've never just like sat there, like gotten home and like, okay, I'm gonna like watch
Yeah.
the game on my laptop and like be alone. Like I just can't imagine. It's like a
Yeah.
horror movie. I would only really watch that with a friend too.
For sure. I get that. I totally get that. Well,
When
you're
is
late.
basketball going on right now? When does basketball
Season
start?
comes back in about a month.
Tell me about the Suns. Is there any hope for them? Because I really like at this point feel extremely loyal, and that's like the
Absolutely.
only thing I could
So
invest in.
the Suns have Devin Booker, who is probably a top 15 player in the NBA right now.
Top
Uh,
15,
yeah.
not
Kevin
even a top
Durant.
10.
Kevin
I need a
Durant
top 10.
is a top 3 player in the NBA, top 5 player in the
And
NBA.
he's on the Suns.
Yes,
Okay,
he's
that's
a
dope.
generational player. They just traded for Bradley Beal, who is very good, maybe a top 30 player in the
Okay.
NBA. And they're a pretty deep team. They go in the playoffs. They have been in the playoffs the past few years straight. So
Right.
there's something to look forward to.
They've never won.
And that's why we root for them. And
Yeah.
and it's doubly because they had Chris Paul last year, and so people wanted Chris Paul to win his first championship with the Suns, so they both get it there first. But
Who's their biggest like rival right now? The Lakers?
maybe I think honestly it comes down to like who they play in the playoffs. So like Nuggets were last year because Nuggets won last year, but
Who's
it's
the
hard.
best team right now?
Oh God, you're putting me on the spot here. This is a tough one.
It could
Nuggets
be
won.
opinion too.
Jokic is the best player
The
out of the
Nuggets
players.
one?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. Nikola Jokic is the greatest player in the NBA. He's
Never even heard that name until just
he's a
now.
he's a big man who can pass. He can do it all, and
Really? He's better than LeBron.
it's. I mean, LeBron is he's inching towards retirement, so
He's
his
kind of
era
in
is
his
almost
like
up.
twilight years now.
He's still
Yeah.
dominating. Don't get me wrong. He's still averaging like 27 points at 39 years old or whatever he is. Um,
Yeah.
but Jokic is there's no one like him. It's kind of like I don't know if you pay attention to baseball at all. I feel like Jokic is like Otani, who's like, oh, we've never seen anyone do this before.
Hmm.
It's a fun time in the NBA. And,
Who's the
it's a
worst team? Let's say the NBA comes to you like, hey, we've got to make some budget cuts and we've got to eradicate an entire team from the NBA and including the players on that team currently. And no, none of them can ever play basketball again. And this team, we're gonna burn all the jerseys and it's just over.
that's a tough one because I don't want to like obviously eradicate like a historic
And
franchise
I
or
need you
whatever.
to
So
keep in mind that a lot of these guys have like mortgages, families, and like it's a
are you
big
trying to
decision you're
cancel
making.
me right now?
Yeah, yeah, I am.
The guy from indie basketball just says that the Orlando Magic should be burned to the ground.
Yeah.
uh,
Orlando
no,
Magic has to stay only because their '90s logo was so sick.
phenomenal. Yeah, it was honestly like the anti Suns. It was like had the similar shape with the Magic kind of the ball glistening, but it was like reverse
Yeah, the
colors.
Suns was like fire,
Yeah, yeah,
harsh, masculine. And this was like
magical.
wavy, magical. Yeah.
Um,
Okay, well, you don't have to answer. That's okay,
I
unless you
mean
have one.
I dislike the Bulls right now, but I wouldn't obviously can't get rid of that franchise.
Whoa, you can't cancel the Bulls. I
No,
mean,
they're
talk
classic.
about burning to
They're
the ground. They'll come for you in
what
Chicago.
I would say the Oklahoma City Thunder because they should have never been taken away from Seattle.
Also, like, what even is that?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oklahoma City Thunder. That's not a team. If that was like a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire question, it was like one of these is not a basketball team. I'd say
Yeah,
the Oklahoma City Thunder. That's not a thing.
and their mascot's a buffalo. Like what?
What? Why didn't they call themselves the Buffalo? That's a better
Yeah, like
sports title team.
I don't know. It's
Mm.
it's a mystery. They should have just stayed as the Seattle Supersonics, but
Wait, so do the Seattle Supersonics not exist anymore?
no, they're so someone bought them and they just said, I'm gonna move the team. And they did.
It's crazy you can do that, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. And everyone in Seattle's pissed about it because they still want a team. That city still loves basketball.
So like I could buy like I could buy the Bulls and be like, you're actually like you're the Crocodiles now, and I'm moving you to Key West, Florida.
I
And
feel
like
like,
that's it. There's no more Bulls and Chicago doesn't have a basketball team.
to be honest, that'd be better than being owned by Jerry Reinsdorf. I'm totally fine with that.
Wow. It's just crazy you can do that.
It,
Sonics
yeah,
also had a great jersey color.
I
It
feel
was like a
like they
little
had several
uninspired,
good
just like,
jerseys.
oh, okay, the Space Needle, but like the color, the vibe was right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the skyline within a basketball is kind of nice.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty dope.
Well, all right, that's
Mm.
about all I got.
All right.
But
Okay, yeah, same.
thanks again for coming on, dude. This was a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Yeah.